And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You are tuned into the Status Network, the live TV channel. And this is the Conversation Corner with your host, the author, Andrew Snorton. And tonight, as we're doing full remote in this current day and age, we're inviting you to have a conversation with us as we've got some great guests doing some great things across entertainment, business, the community, and more. So before we get to our first guest, we want to take care of a few station announcements as well as public service announcements. First off, with the Status Network, thank you so much for taking time not only to tune into my show, but tuning into the entire Status Network family of shows, hosts, programs, radio stations, even movie channels. So to best enjoy tonight's show, please make sure to visit statusnetwork.net, click on channels, click on live TV, and then you're good to go. But make sure you click on the Conversation Corner so you can register for updates and also catch up on all the great shows we've done really since October 2018. For those of you that have space on your smartphone or your smart device, please download the Status Network app, click on channels, click on live TV, and you're good to go. On social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Periscope, I think I already did say Twitter, YouTube, and more. Make sure to add Status Network as well as live TV. For those of you that have Roku as well as Amazon Fire Stick, make sure to tune in to Status Network and to also connect with me on my channel. Well, not necessarily my channel, but my official page. Make sure to check out the Facebook page, author Andrew Snorton, as it'll be up there in just a couple of moments. And just make sure to share and enjoy, as these are the types of things we do every second and fourth Wednesday at about this time. So speaking of this time, let's go ahead and take care of our public service announcements so that way viewers are aware of different things going on. For those of you out there involved in film, please make sure to connect with us here at the Status Network. We've got a movie channel, so whether you're a veteran or a novice, somewhere in between, make sure to connect with us. Get your film the exposure that it needs. Our next public service announcement. And it's that type of year. Father's Day is coming up next month. And we know that you're going to be in need of some photography services. So reach out to Emery Rose Photography with their Daddy and Me mini session special. And of course, they will practice social distancing and all that, as they've been rated the top in Gwinnett County in 2018 and 2019. Our next public service announcement. Again, this was one of our guests that were on before. This is Custom LLC with their I Am Black Legacy line. This is a great line to not only instill pride, it's classy, it's stylish, and especially when we need that type of constructive piece of motivation, you want to make sure to check out their work. So shouts to the folks with I Am Black Legacy with This is Custom LLC. Our next public service announcement. Oh my goodness, and hopefully we'll get a chance to talk about this a little bit later, but I was really excited to be a part of this collaborative called All About the Authors, as I was able to host this with celebrity host Tyressa Ty, and it's basically an authors roundtable doing some great talk about some great books. And we're going to talk about some great books tonight, but this past Sunday, it was on Zoom. So we featured Willie Cartwright and Tina Ruffin, who are doing some great literary work. So make sure to connect with me and we can get you that information so you can watch it on Zoom. Our next public service announcement is back on May 2nd, just before Mother's Day. I was excited to do a virtual book reading and signing. I aired it on my Facebook Live as well as my Instagram Live. So in case you missed it, if you add me on YouTube, which is author A. Snorton, the entire 35 to 40-minute presentation is broken up into 3 smaller segments. So that way you get the info on all the books, the audio books, and more. So make sure to check that out when you get a chance. Our next public service announcement is another thing I've been really excited to do is called the Fast 15. It's our weekly midweek, midday live chat. Like it says, about 15 minutes, part check-in to give everybody a chance to kind of pause and breathe during these COVID-19, now normal times, short reading that hopefully ties in with an area of concern, and then some positive words of encouragement to get you on your day and on your way. So make sure to check out the next editions of the Fast 15, which will be next Wednesday, May 20th, as well as the following Wednesday, May 27th at 1:06 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Yeah, I wonder who I'm shouting out there. And our next public service announcement, and we'll have video that'll be coming up shortly, is from one of our supporting businesses, Creative Community Solutions. They do a lot of press and media work, but they also do education-based work. And even with the now normal, and we know ACTs and SATs are kind of a little bit helter-skelter, we do know for students who are taking the ACTs, they do have June and July dates, but then they won't start back again until September. The SATs won't start back again until August, but it doesn't mean you wait until then to go ahead and get the prep that you need. So in just a couple moments, we're going to catch a quick promotion from Creative Community Solutions. So give us a quick moment or two, and we are going to go ahead and get that on shortly.
Hey there, students and parents. Fall dates for the ACT. As for the SAT, you can register now as they will start back up with testing in August. But before those test dates come, reach out to us today for your options for individual and group sessions. Virtual sessions are available, and yes, we will preview and prep for the ACT and SAT. So reach out to us today and let's make it happen.
And ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. So again, you want to make sure to reach out to Creative Community Solutions, doing some great work across the board. And I think now we are just about ready for our very first in-studio virtual guest representing, the University of Georgia, one of the great faculty doing some great things. Let's give a warm welcome to Dr. Jory Hall. Jory, how are you doing this evening?
Hi, Andrew. I'm doing well. How are you?
Hey, doing just fine, doing just fine. Could you let our viewers know a little bit of a point of reference where you're originally from? And again, we know that you're affiliated with the University of Georgia, so go ahead.
Sure. Thanks so much, first of all, for having me on tonight. It's awesome to be here with everyone, including yourself. So it's a good thing to know that I am from Chicago. I'm a Chi-Town girl. Grew up and lived in Chicago all my life. And so now, as Andrew said, I am at the University of Georgia. I've been faculty there since 2008. I'm an associate professor in the College of Education. And within the College of Education, I am in what's called the Qualitative Research Program. And I do research, I teach courses on qualitative research, and of course, I do service oriented things as well. So that's where I am at the University of Georgia. I do, however, live in Atlanta, because why? Why not?
So in other words, you're one of those, you don't mind making that commute, so to speak.
Andrew, I lived in Athens when I first came to Georgia. It might be important to know I never lived outside of Illinois until I got my position at UGA. And so moving south was interesting, and Chicago girl. Atlanta was close to that Chicago style that I like, so I had to find my way to Atlanta after a couple of years of living in Athens.
Okay, totally get it, totally understand. So now here you are, you've made the transition from Chicago to Atlanta/Athens. Could you describe with our viewers some of the key areas that you cover, not only in regards to just as a faculty member, but we know there's also research involved. Could you walk through that with us?
Absolutely. So one of the things I think a lot about is how to conduct research in a way that really relates to and corresponds with the participants. And so as we know from our COVID situation right now, different groups do not fare well under different conditions. And so COVID is affecting Black and Brown people disproportionately harshly, right? And so it's a known fact. This is historical. This is nothing new. And so what I like to do is think about that in the context of research, because as we know, people have studied folks from other cultures. They have objectified them. They have deceived them. They have done all kinds of things to what we call in certain circles the other, what has been known as the other. Anthropologists, some of y'all might know, would go into what's called like foreign places and try to understand different cultures and call them I don't know, all kinds of things, troublesome, right? They're unmanageable, they're unruly. We have to tame these savages and all these kinds of things. So all of this stuff, these negative stereotypes are bound up in research. And what I like to have my students think about is what kinds of biases and issues and things do they bring into the research process. So I like to promote more culturally responsive research that doesn't have a deficit orientation, doesn't rely on stereotypes, but offers opportunities for researchers to open up the research space such that folks who are participants can either join in the research process, be considered experts in the research process as they are experts of their own experience, and not be objectified in the research process. And so it's a way to think about research in a way that doesn't cause harm to people, essentially. Different people need different things.
And it's good that you mentioned that, because some people think like research is so hard line and it doesn't account for these different things, which can obviously kind of skew your results and what have you. So what you're talking about is real important to say, hey, look, we've got other factors we've got to account for in order to get as much rich information, as much encompassing and engrossing to really what story are we trying to tell? What information are we trying to gather? What things do we know, and what things are we, rediscovering? Walk through with our viewers now your book right here, Focus Groups. That's the short version, but I always want people to introduce the full version. So please let people know the full official title of the book. Hint, this might be something you might want to read, ladies and gentlemen. Go ahead, please.
So the book is about focus groups, as you mentioned, and the longer title has to do with who the audience is for the book. And so the audience is geared toward those people who are interested in conducting focus groups. So these people can be they can be qualitative researchers, they can be evaluators, they can be people who do marketing research, whatever the case. The point is that I want people to think about who is sitting with them in this circle as they conduct the focus group. I don't know if your viewers know this or not, but a focus group is different than an interview. And it's different in a very meaningful way, because the cool thing, as far as I'm concerned, about focus groups is that they allow you not only to get information from the participants for them to tell their stories, their narratives, and all of those kinds of things, but focus groups are really cool because they also allow you to observe participants in terms of their group dynamic. So if you really are interested, for example, in how it is a particular group talks about a topic and relates to each other around a topic, you want to conduct a focus group. So that's what the book is about, how to think about conducting these focus groups with respect to Black women, the young children, for example, these different types of groups are each given a chapter in the book. Most books like the one I have actually give one chapter where they talk about people of color or multicultural focus groups. My book is different because what I was trying to do, and what I hope I did, is to spend the whole book talking about the other, right? All these different vulnerable groups, marginalized groups, and thinking through, okay, how would you conduct a focus group with this particular group in mind?
And that's awesome. And I said, and it's great what you said, because people don't always have a point of reference. And like you shared earlier, in general, it's like, okay, here's a chapter, but let's keep moving. You're like, wait a minute. In order for us to have, let's say, for lack of a term, better research and more meaningful research, we've got to look at these audiences that, I'll say, periodically get overlooked, periodically are marginalized, because it almost reminds me a little bit of, I think about the Source Awards, and Outkast said the South's got something to say. Well, from an academic lens, there are groups, like you said, based on gender, based on ethnic background, and other variables that have something to say. And we need to try to capture that as fully as possible.
Absolutely. The thing is, and you're probably hearing lots on the news about COVID-19, what I encourage folks to think about are things such as, who's collecting the data? What kinds of questions are being asked, right? And like, who's participating in the data collection itself? Because all of these things matter. We know that if, for example, research comes out about breast cancer, it affects Black women differently. So if you're reading a study about breast cancer and they've only conducted the study, for example, with participants who are non-Black, and how much of that really applies to people like me, right? Like, how much can I really take away from that data? And so I think that these differences matter. These differences are important. And in some cases, these differences can be the difference between life or death, right? Because it has been heard on all kinds of media how people get treated differently when they encounter research, when they encounter healthcare professionals, and it could really mean life or death. If you're not included and you have symptoms and yours vary from someone else's, or your experiences vary from someone else's, you could be missing out on a whole lot of things that can impact your life. And so the short version, Andrew, is that I think as what I call a culturally responsive researcher, I like to center culture, and say, okay, what is the social context that this person is embedded in, right? How do we understand these structures and what role they're playing in their lives? And I just have to get this in because I'm very struck by how often folks are blamed for their conditions. And it's just not true in every case. Some of these things are structural, meaning that there are laws and policies, things in our communities and our neighborhoods that an individual has no control over, but that impacts their everyday life. So when you think about research, these things may not get talked about as much, but all of these things play a role in how research gets done.
And I'm glad that you really, you articulated it in a way that people can relate, people can understand. You're still maintaining your academic integrity, but no, it's great that you're taking time to talk with people. And you make a good point. Like, some of these things are a little bit, like you said, can be a little bit skewed. And you're trying to see what can we do to reduce, for lack of a better term, reduce that bias or reduce some flaws in, just looking at the makeup of the audience or the kinds of questions that we're trying to ask. And like you said before, you're focusing on making it relevant and pertinent and accessible. So even though, you're obviously looking at it through that academic and research lens, you're making sure to make it relatable to other people. And it's like, wait a minute, there's some things that we do need to draw into question or need to approach a little bit differently, or approach, for like I said earlier, be as encompassing as possible. So we're capturing as many of these stories and narratives and things along those lines. Let me ask you this, because in research, your scope can only go so far.
Right.
And there's some things that fall beyond the scope of what you do. Do you see yourself revisiting some of these topics? And if so, what would be some of the things you'd want to pursue a little bit further that maybe this particular work doesn't, get into?
So one of the things the book gets into, which I think is actually timely in terms of COVID-19, when I wrote the book, I had no idea COVID was coming, right? Like, I don't think anybody saw this coming. But one of the chapters talks about how to conduct focus groups online, which we all are very familiar with doing things online at this point. And so that's really okay and timely and all of that. However, what's not in the book and what has come up recently is collecting data online. When you run a focus group, you have the data, which is what the participants say, and maybe even if you're capturing their nonverbal communications like laughter and body movements and all these things as important to the research. But people in focus groups sometimes can be a little less likely to share, honestly. And that could be for many reasons. But in this COVID-19 context, especially, people are not free to just talk because why they're conducting the focus group and maybe their mom is in the background, right? You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And we're all dealing with this, right? Whereas before, you could probably go off somewhere and have a little bit more privacy before COVID-19. But now when you're collecting data, people are from the field are telling me, look, everybody's in the house with everybody else, and we're trying to collect this data, but so-and-so's in the background, and the participants don't really want to be forthright because they don't want so-and-so to hear what they have to say. And so this becomes problematic in the context of research. And this is not covered in the book because, this wasn't thought of at the time. But there's ways in which we can kind of work around it. And I would suggest that we as researchers have to be a bit more creative and maybe ask people to use the comment section and write things in the text box for those more sensitive kinds of topics so that folks can still get their opinions in, but do so in a way that doesn't put them out on Front Street, so to speak, right?
Mm-hmm.
So again, that's the kind of thing I'm thinking about. How do we protect our participants? Ethics, hugely important to me because why? People have been so abused, quite honestly,
Mm-hmm.
by research conducted in this country, and they don't trust it.
And you make another good valid point. It almost sounds like, some people don't go to the doctor just because of such and such that happened. but I think the good thing is you're having not only the academic conversation, the better practices in research, but hey, in part of doing those, you got to understand this is why people are kind of apprehensive, or this is where, for lack of a term, there's been misuse. So we have to do better and hold ourselves to a higher level of accountability, higher standards, if we're trying to do as best as possible to capture the story. And I know you've heard these terms, validity and reliability. Sound familiar?
Yes.
If we're going to be much more valid and much more reliable, there's things that we have to clean up and we have to do better and be, as like I said, have integrity and inviting so we can draw that info. Now that we've got a better pool of info, we can probably make some better decisions and better choices. And I'm glad, you spoke about, what's going on with COVID-19, because like you said, things are definitely a whole lot different and what have you. So even in that, you're still finding ways to navigate through and still be able to, do the work that's needed. And that's highly commendable. That's seriously highly commendable. I'd say words of wisdom or insight, given the work that you're doing with the book, given the work that you're doing in higher education, what would you say would be one general takeaway that you want viewers to have? Whether it's in regards to this is what we do, this is why it's important, to just words of wisdom, like when you're sitting on grandmom's knee and, and, all that type of stuff. What would be one takeaway you'd want viewers to have?
I might have two, if that's
Okay.
possible. So one is, you had mentioned this earlier, and I kind of want to go back to something you said about research and how people understand it. In my assessment, one of the biggest myths about research is that it's value neutral, that it's non-biased, and that is simply not the case. Even your most hardcore quantitative, hard sciences, all of these things are embedded in a social context. Research is a social enterprise. And so I really wish people would kind of like wrap their head around that idea, that we try to claim how research, we want to get rid of biases, and we want to get rid of the politics, and we want to get rid of all of these things. But the truth of the matter is, you cannot take those things out of research. It's always there. It's like you can't get out of the matrix kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so even when you think about it, the decisions as to what to even study is a political decision in and of itself. When you look at it that way, human hands are always touching the numbers and making interpretations about what those numbers mean. So again, I just implore people to understand how much there is a social aspect, a political aspect with research. The other thing I would say is, one of the things I'm very passionate about is getting people who may not be necessarily included in research. I think it's important for researchers who look like me to continue in research, because it matters. When I collect data from Black women, I think it makes a difference. Can white women collect data from Black women? Sure they can, if they're culturally sensitive. At the same time, and as other researchers would tell you, maybe you're not the right person to collect that data. And so we have to realize that as well. So when you're the right person and when you're not, both things are important for collecting data, because the priority is not you as the researcher per se. It's, again, being responsive to the participant, particularly in qualitative research, which is my field. So those are some take-home points, I guess, I would like to leave the audience with, because again, those are the things that I don't think get a shine on them, if you will, right? Like, people are not necessarily up on that. So
well, I'm glad you broke it down in the way you did. So as we get ready to draw your segment to a close, please remind our viewers the title of your book, where they can get it, and if people have questions, the best way to get in contact with you.
Sure, I have to look at the title. It's kind of long. Okay, it's Focus Group's Culturally Responsive Approaches for Qualitative Inquiry and Program Evaluation. And you can find this on Myers Press. It's on sale there, and there may be even a discount code. And you can find me, Jory Hall, on LinkedIn.
Sounds great. Well, Dr. Hall, the doctor's in the house. Thank you so much for the work that you're doing. Best wishes with all that you're working on. And what we're going to do at this point in time, we're going to take our first commercial break, and we come back, we're going to bring on another awesome guest doing awesome things. This is the Conversation Corner with your host, Andrew Snorton.
Thank you.
on the Conversation Corner with, again, your host, the author, Andrew Snorton. We've been blessed to have a great first guest to come on, Dr. Jory Hall, doing some great work in regards to what she's doing research-wise at the University of Georgia and then some. And this is definitely taking on more of an author's theme tonight, as our second guest is no stranger to the show. She has been on a few times talking about the work that she's done in arts and entertainment. Uh, Goodness, arts and entertainment is a great start, has her hands in just about everything. And so when I say she brings the heat, she brings the fire, there's only one person I know, and that is Faya Ty Resatai. Ty, how you doing this evening?
Hello, world. Hello, world. I am always super excited to spend time with author Snorton. I'm doing well.
It is great to see you. And I know you, when I say you've got your hands in everything, you have your share of moving parts. So before we get into your new book that you've done, briefly let our viewers know some of the moving parts you have within arts and entertainment.
Where should I start? It's been, I will say that it's been very, we've always considered our life in entertainment as unorthodox. Moving, typically, a typical week for us would be being on a plane 2 or 3 times a week. And unfortunately, with the pandemic, we've been standstill and unmovable, just like everyone else. So that's been very challenging, if you will, for us, because we're accustomed to doing the live interviews. I have supported, in the past, I've supported Dougie Fresh as brand and road manager, Kelly Price. I've worked with Tamika Tiny Harris, and I am now, even during the crises, because some of the artists are working, some of them are taking this time to just chill. Unfortunately, Teddy Riley is not doing what he sings, and so I've been I've been deep in the trenches with him on a few projects. So I am definitely the go-to person as it relates to entertainment. So I can get a random call from anyone about anything related to the entertainment industry and how to move the needle in whatever direction they're trying to go in.
Well,
so that's the entertainment side of it. And of course, my personal, the thing that author Teresa Ty just released a new journal, and it couldn't have been a better time. God has been put this particular series on this particular journal on my heart. I do have a series of journals. I have my original journal that goes with my book, Follow the Fire. I have a journal that goes with that particular book, and then I have my his and her journals, and that's a workbook to go through as you go through the book and read different things in my memoir to help you, challenge you to move to the next level. It is a book for ordinary people chasing extraordinary dreams, so I am a living example of that. And my testimony. Again, as relates to my journals, I have the his and her journals, which is an exercise that you could do separate for him and her. I encourage you to do it if you're a couple together. This is no better time to do it, because you probably don't want to talk a lot during this isolation. So you get a chance to write some stuff down. And so then my recent baby is the self-care journal, Matters of the Mind, and it is near and dear to my heart. It has a lot of stuff in it, and I'm just super excited to be here to talk about all the different things.
Well, I tell you what, and when I say, the word that comes to mind is like, you're the glue that holds some things together. When I think about the work you are doing with different artists, you're that glue person. You keep it together. And I think thematically that makes a lot of sense with the release of Matters of the Mind, especially with this month being Mental Health Awareness Month. So walk through with our viewers with the release of the new journal, how that can kind of be that glue piece, or maybe that first step or that bridge for helping identify and addressing, some of those pressures, those stressors, all those things that can kind of make it feel like we're putting kerosene on a fire. No, and you're right. No, seriously. I mean,
Yeah.
I know, but for some people,
It tests the brain, it tests the mind, it tests all your whole being. And for me, I am a person that not only now as it relates to entertainment, but I've always felt like the glue to the friendship, to the family. I was the go-to. I've always been the source, if you will, the person that you go to for different things. And then I find myself, what makes it so important is that I want to encourage people who seem like they always have it together. That guess what? This is not for the people you consider a little off in the family. That's very challenging in the family. This is for people who seem like they always have it together, because when you're in a position where people come to you for everything, and you are the champion of the champions, right? And the person that people go to for professional, whether it's professional or personal, a lot of times you tend to lose yourself and you forget what you are and who you are to your own self. And so this is what I love about this book, is because I when I started to write it and dive into
Hey,
it,
what's going
I'm
on?
really big on making things simple. But I wanted to ask those questions that my therapist asked me, and I did say therapist back in the day. I haven't been in a minute. I would love to go if I had
mhm.
time. But I mean, I believe in therapy. I thought about the questions, those probing questions that was asked to me, that helped me really think and helped me make some decisions. I thought about some things that I wish someone would ask me now sometimes. Just ask me. I think about the things that I would want to tell someone, and I don't always say it out loud. And when I was formatting, putting this journal together, those were the things that I wanted to put in this book. The things that you don't say out loud, that you can write it down. And I believe that writing is a healer. I think this is a one-on-one accountability piece, a tool, if you will, to help you manage during the process of not just this pandemic, but through life. Even if you're seeing a therapist, it's a tool that you could take home with you in the process of the next visit. I can't compare it, but it's just as an analogy. I say as a Bible. You go to church on Sundays, you go to Bible study on Wednesdays, but during that the process of that week, you need to grab the word just for a minute, just to read a scripture or two, just to keep you balanced. And I believe that the self-care journal, and I didn't want to call it a mental health journal because people think mental health is a bad thing. It's mental health month is near and dear to me. I believe if you take care of yourself, self-care, it'll take care of everything else that's going on inside your heart, your mind, your body, your soul, everything else.
And I think it's good. And you made a good point because, like you said, some people still hear mental health and it creates some type of, oh my goodness, I can't talk about that. But you made some really good points. Number one, and I'm sure a number of people have heard this type of analogy. Even the strongest of people need to have their moments. And for those people that feel like they don't have the luxury,
Mm-hmm.
now they've got a way to constructively, like you said, get some things out of their system. And that can be a bridge if they see that, hey, I need to go sit down somewhere or I need to seek professional help. And I know, like I said, with this month, we are highlighting because it is Mental Health Awareness Month. But it's like you said before, these are things that go on beyond just the month of May. So, what are some straightforward things you can do to, like you were saying, just keep yourself centered and keep yourself as balanced as possible? And that way, you're kind of early on able to recognize, hey, I need to pivot, I need to go here, I need to go there. So, I think it's real important, the fact that this is really, it can be that bridge builder in a
Well,
number of respects.
well, for me, I'm sorry, I'm trying to get I'm trying to get my camera right. I had to plug up my phone. Um, Things that I always challenge people, and when I say I challenge, I'm a prior corporate trainer. My challenge comes with encouragement. Um, I encourage people as I challenge them. And the things that I say in the process of when I think about mental health, and I'm hoping I'm asking this question right because I was kind of feeling around, but some of the other tools that I encourage people to do And I did a whole little series on this being able to balance, right? Lighting a candle, taking a shower, a bath, a shower, whatever you prefer. I like to have music on when I take a shower. I like to, even if you're a person that's not a jogger, to just run and get some fresh air. This is more important now than ever. Um, Taking a glass of wine, if you indulge in wine. Wine is my best kept secret, but it's not a secret because everybody knows I love wine. I said I love the Lord and I love wine. That was his first miracle, and he did it for me. But tea in the evening. A lot of times I drink more during the morning or night. I'm gonna have a glass of tea and a glass of wine, one or the other. Well, I don't drink wine in the morning, so normally I have tea in the morning, and then I have a glass of wine at night. And sometimes I do have a glass of tea at night as well. Um, but grabbing a glass of tea or wine and grabbing a great book to read, such as this, maybe.
Hey, look at that.
Does that, this is a great time to just challenge yourself to find some really great books. And of some really great people, it doesn't have to be an author that's a well-known author, because a story is a story, and I believe everybody has one. I've been just going through the books of my friends and counterparts and people that I do know, and I've been trying to take time to go through their books, read those books, and to take it's just a still away moment, right? From a mental perspective, a still away moment where you can, anytime you pick up someone's book, and you go into that book, a book will take you to a place. It's people like watching movies and they like drama and they can't see what's next. A book is the same way. You can't even imagine how um just the mind, the way the mind ponders during the process of reading a good book. And when you read that book, I always say, when you read that book, then you take some time and just think about what happened and grab one of my journals. My book was derived from a journal. A journal I call my his and her journal, the she shed and the man cave, because it allows you to just dive in. And during this time, I think it's so near and dear to not say everything you feel, because you're confined in a location with people, and people are testy, and people they got anxiety, and they saying things the wrong way, they taking things the wrong way, and some things you don't need to say out loud. I think this is the perfect time for people to journal about how they feel, not about just the pandemic, how they are feeling internally, emotionally. Some people are having financial issues, which is not strange, and just finding a way to be able to stay sound and whole, if you will, because the mind determines everything. I like to use the example of a friend in high school who had a motorcycle accident, and this will be embedded in me for the rest of my life. And I remember, because this was carnival time, and carnival time is really big for us.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember going to the hospital to see him, and he looked fine. He was laid because I said, did anything break? His ribs is fine. He's not paralyzed. He didn't break his neck. I'm looking at him and I'm like, he looked fine. It was like, say your goodbyes. And I'm like, why should I have to say my goodbyes? And ain't nothing look like nothing wrong with him. And again, I was in high school, so this was very, death is very, 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 very confusing in high school and grad school, undergrad. And so I remember the doctor saying he's brain dead. He's brain dead. He said, when the brain is dead, everything is gone. And I just will never forget that. And I look at people and I say, people are walking around in their own way and they're brain dead. They're still moving. They're still dressing up. They still got the outer appearance, the finest jewelry, the lipstick, the good fragrance, all these different things, but their brain is slowly deteriorating because they need help. And when the brain is dead, nothing else is functioning properly the way it should. If it can't get oxygen, if it can't breathe, you cannot function the way you need to function. And it's just so, ironically with corona, that's one of the symptoms of not being able to breathe. If you can't breathe, you can't live. You got to be able to breathe. And a lot of that breathing comes from letting go, just letting go, just letting go. I want to encourage you, all of your listeners and everyone to just learn to let go. And a great way to take all this stress and all that's just inside of here, because all this is coming from here. So a man thinketh, so is he, right? So a man, whatever's in your head, that's what's in you. That's what's gonna it's gonna show in your the way you speak, what you say. Normally, what's in your head comes out of your mouth, but it determines your demeanor. It's like when somebody says something in a meeting and you don't agree, and once it hits the brain, you may not say anything, but your the demeanor and the reflection of your face of what you're feeling is going to show. And so I'm just encouraging everyone and challenging them as well to take all that anxiety, all that feeling, all that frustration, all that I don't know how I'm going to do whatever it is that is concerning you right now, and dump it in here. This is the best place to put it, right here. You take this and you just dump it, dump it, dump it, and it's healing for the soul. It's healthy. It's definitely healthy, and it'll allow you to release some of the things that you cannot say out loud. I believe that journaling is just something you need right next to prayer.
And you said a lot right there, but there's a lot of takeaways from that. And with what you're doing is providing people, number one, with the resource. And resources can be very straightforward. Like you said before, journaling can be a good bridge and a good release. And
Right.
like you said before, making sure to you can't bring everything with you. You can't take
No.
everything with you. And again, regardless of where you are, it's about being proactive. So before things continue to build up and pile up and where you really feel you're between a rock and a hard place, let's
Mhm.
take care of it when it's a pebble. Because when it's a boulder, it can not say you can't get through it when it's a boulder, but it makes it a little bit more of a challenge. What's one before we get ready to start winding down, in addition to all those other things that you shared, what would you say is one, whether nugget of information, one seed you'd like to plant or one seed you'd like to sow to our audience?
I would like them to, if nothing more, than just to think about everything that I said, because stress is the number one killer. And unconscious stress is real. That's where the strokes and the heart attacks come, because like you said, it's a pebble when you're frowning. It's a pebble when the chest is starting to feel tight, or you're starting to having ongoing headaches. It's a pebble when you can't sleep at night, you're tossing and turning. But it becomes a big deal when you pass out. It becomes a big deal when you're connected to an IV, or oxygen to survive. Stress can feel like it's just like you're having a bad day, right? It could just feel like a bad day. Anxiety can make you feel sometimes like you're having a heart attack. You're having shortness of breath. You're feeling a little confused. When you start feeling, you know your body, and remember when I talked about, don't allow yourself to be unconsciously brain dead, where you've taken on so much and you have not withdrew, you've not dumped, you've all you've been doing is depositing your issues and others, the issues of others, and you have not had a chance to detox and dump. And so it's just it's in you, it's festering in you, and stress is like a cancer. It'll eat the inside of you, and it'll take you up out of here. Another thing I want to challenge you, and I know you said one thing is the kids. I can't talk about the adults and not forget about the kids that are home. My heart cries out to people, to women that are in abusive relationships right now and stuck home. They can't
Mhm.
escape. Kids that are being touched. I call it touched, because it's from grandmother, grandpa used to say touched. Um, I want you to consider those people. If you are not a person that may feel like this journal is for you, I encourage you to maybe buy it for someone else as a gift, as a graduation gift. This journal is for all people, any race, denomination, rich or poor, anybody that has a brain that needs to release. I um I ask that you consider the kids as well. during this period because they're struggling with peer pressure. Social media is driving. It's a resource, and it can also be a deterrent as well. It could cause a lot of stress. I think just to get away with a good book and a good journal will help relieve some of that stress. But nothing more I can say is just keep your mind. The matters of the mind determines the future. It determines the future and the course of your life. Keep your mind right.
I tell you what, that's some awesome insights. So as we get ready to wind down, please let viewers know the best way they can stay connected and engaged with you in the work that you're doing.
Please follow me at on Facebook at Tyresa Ty, TYRESSATY, on Instagram and Twitter at Fire YAHTYRESSA Ty, Fire Tyresa Ty. I also have a website at www.firetyresaty.com, and you can I'm sure Drew is going to post that as well, so make sure you check me out. Again, I'm here to share resources, and I'm going to just say this, and I always say this: if someone just desperately wants a journal and they can't afford it during this time, Drew, one of your listeners, make sure you let me know, and I'm always willing to donate throughout this period that you're going through, to donate 2 journals to one of your viewers, this not just this month but next month as well, if they're in a situation where they desperately looking for a resource but they just really can't afford it.
Okay, no problem. Well, we're going to go ahead. I tell you what, we've had a very energetic show. Ooh, who's that calling? I don't know.
Hey!
But real talk, Ty, thank you so much. So as it's about our time, and we know we've got another show coming on at 8 o'clock, real quick, second and fourth Wednesday. This is what we do here at the Conversation Corner. I thank each and every one of you for taking time to tune in. We had 2 great guests, Dr. Jory Hall and via Tyresa Ty. We're going to go ahead and close out with a quick reminder of some of the work that we're doing. Stay tuned for our next show that's coming on right at 8 o'clock.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the author Andrew Snorton, and I'm back here with Third Level Entertainment Music Group, and we are back recording the author's mixtape, Volume 2, Beyond the Holidays, Beyond History. Yeah, we're picking up where we left off from Volume 1. Everything is done in a single session. Nothing pre-written, nothing pre-recorded. Straight organic, aligning with the traditional mixtape format that you're used to hearing in hip-hop. An author doing hip-hop, kind of, sort of, but a little bit different. We're taking a look at something deep, going a little bit deeper, maybe getting a little bit edgier, a little more humor. But again, all from the heart. So stay tuned, listen, kick back, laugh, cry, get a little bit amped, and get very reflective as we step into the author's mixtape, Volume 2, Beyond the Holidays, Beyond History.